So Yuval DM'd me the other day and let me know that he would be responding to my video about the 2024 election. I responded and said, thanks for the heads up, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. He released that video today, and I'm sorry to say that I was really disappointed with it. I felt like it was overall a poorly argued video that was in many ways flagrantly disrespectful and dismissive of my arguments. At many points, the video disingenuously oversimplifies my arguments, and at many points, the video disingenuously straight up misrepresents my arguments. I have a lot of respect for Yuval as a content creator, and I have a lot of respect for where he's coming from with this response, so I'm going to try to respond in as respectful a manner as possible. First off, let's talk about the presentation of Yuval's video. He uses this common editing technique where for my clips, he speeds up the clip and speeds up the audio, but for his clips, he lets it play at regular speed.
It's so dumb that we're like, no, we can't do that. We just have to accept that we got beat by the guy who cheats at everything he's ever done in his life.
Hi everybody, I'm not coming for Austin, he's a mutual of mine. However, there is a lot of information that most people seem to ignore each time this conversation comes up that puts most of this argument to bed.
I don't think that he did this to intentionally make me look bad. I think he just did it to keep the video brief and to help with audience retention. But I will say that this editing technique, whether it's intentional or not, has the effect of aesthetically presenting an argument in an inherently unfair way. Because what the audience sees is one person whose audio has been sped up to make it sound like they're one of the chipmunks or an intentionally unflattering South Park caricature.
A dictator from the Middle East? Hey, relax, guys.
And the other person having their audio played at normal speed comes off by comparison as being automatically more level-headed, more grounded, more reasonable, and more serious. So from the jump, I feel like the video is maybe disingenuously putting its thumb on the scale of how its audience should feel about both arguments just based on its aesthetic presentation of both arguments. But let's get into the actual substance of the video. Yuval sums up my argument early on in the video by saying it's essentially this.
Also, I think articulates in this video as well as in a few comments that his underlying argument is just, this person who's cheated all of his life probably cheated in the election.
To me, this is a pretty big oversimplification of my argument. I'm not just saying a guy who has cheated a bunch in the past probably cheated and therefore he definitely did. What I am saying more specifically is a man who has a well-documented history of lying and cheating at everything he has ever done in his life, from his personal relationships, to his business dealings, to his legal affairs, to his political career, to his philanthropy, to his behavior on the golf course, is not likely to stop that pattern of behavior for no reason. It's not just that we know Donald Trump has been a liar and a cheater and a con artist in his business dealings and in his legal affairs and in his personal relationships. We also know that it is a matter of factual record that he cheated in both the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections. The Russia collusion happened. It is a matter of factual historical record that Donald Trump colluded with a foreign adversarial government to create a psyop that was designed to sway public favor in his direction during the 2016 presidential race. That is illegal, that is treasonous, that is cheating. That is not a fringe conspiracy theory, that is a thing he factually did. In the 2020 election, even though he lost to Joe Biden, we all watched as he publicly tried to steal that election back. We watched him call Republican senators on the phone and tell them to get him the votes he needed to steal the election back. We watched that happen. Just because he wasn't successful at it doesn't mean he didn't do it. January 6th was an attempted coup. Just because they didn't succeed doesn't mean it wasn't a legitimate attempt to overthrow American democracy. He incited a violent mob to go to the Capitol to kill his then vice president for the crime of ratifying the election results. Again, this is not a fringe conspiracy theory. This is just something he did in full view of the global public. So my argument is not simply a guy who cheats a lot maybe cheated. My argument is I genuinely have a hard time conceiving of a world where a guy who cheats this often and this prolifically would not cheat in the 2024 election. Why would he cheat in 2016 and 2020 and decide to play it fair and square in 2024 when the stakes were as high as they were? When his motive for cheating was this glaring and this obvious. He said out loud several times, if I don't win this election, I'm probably going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And he's not the only one who said that. Now let's get into the actual numbers and data. Again and again in his video, Yuval goes to the exit poll numbers and charts showing the gains that Trump made across the board in the 2024 election, and he uses these numbers as evidence that absolutely no foul play was involved in the election. The problem with this approach is I was never disputing what the numbers say. I was never claiming that the numbers don't say Donald Trump won the election, and here's how. We all know what the official numbers and data show. That's why he was declared the winner. That's why she conceded. That's why he was sworn into office. We know what the numbers and data show. The question is, are those numbers and data reliable? I'm going to use another analogy here because it's just how my brain works best and it helps me explain the basis for my position. Imagine this is a murder case and the forensic evidence shows that the prime suspect's DNA is on the door handle of the home where the murder victim was found and is on the handle of the murder weapon. So the official forensic evidence, the official numbers and data show pretty conclusively that the prime suspect probably committed the murder. Here's the problem. In the course of this case unfolding, it's revealed that the prime suspect was actually a defense attorney who was in the process of mounting a case against the forensic team who handled all of the evidence at the crime scene. What this defense attorney found is that this particular forensics team has a really long, well-documented history of tampering with evidence at crime scenes. What this information means is that the primary forensic evidence in this case is not only highly dubious, it's likely entirely fabricated and highly unreliable and therefore irrelevant and inadmissible. So you can show me official graphs and numbers all day long saying this is the official data, these are the official numbers. The problem is we are having an argument where my position is those numbers are unreliable, and they're questionable and unreliable specifically because of the Trump team's well-documented history of fraudulent and dishonest behavior. You're showing me forensic evidence that comes from a forensics team that has been proven to lie about forensic evidence. It makes your entire argument moot, or at the very least, highly unstable and credibly suspicious. In order for the numbers and graphs that you're showing me to matter, we have to presuppose that those numbers and graphs have not been tainted, that those numbers have not been tampered with in any way. And why would we presuppose that? Why would we presuppose that after a lifetime of lying and cheating at everything he's ever done, when the stakes were as high as they've ever been, he randomly chose to do it by the books and to play fair and square? Also, Yuval talks about these charts where it shows that Donald Trump had consistent gains across the board, not just in swing states, but kind of everywhere in the country. And he shows that as evidence that if he did tamper with the numbers, he would have had to do it everywhere.
Rose Research conducted a research study across 26 million Americans and found that, contrary to popular belief, had everyone voted, Donald Trump would have actually won by even more. Every single piece of data that we're seeing from both before and after the election is indicating that the electorate, even those that are politically disengaged, are much more conservative than they were 4 years ago. This is an organized effort that would require hundreds of thousands of people to actually have an effect on the election itself, which is why it's not possible without there being some physical evidence.
And my response to that is just like, No, that's not true at all. I mean, we know that tens of millions of people did legitimately cast votes for Donald Trump in 2024. It's more than likely that he did have legitimate gains in lots of areas in the country. There's no reason why his team would have to tamper with polling numbers in an area where he is legitimately winning. It's not even unthinkable that he could have had similar gains in several key swing states, 3 or 4 of them, even 5, meaning all they would have to do to complete the sweep is just put their thumb on the scale in a few key areas and make it look like the gains in those areas were statistically similar to the legitimate gains he was experiencing in other areas. Okay, we've established character, we've established motive. Let's talk about opportunity. So first of all, I just want to make it really clear that I never claimed outright that the 2024 election was rigged by using Starlink internet modems to hack voting machines. I never said that. All I said was that at the very least, allowing Elon Musk, a man who had already invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the Trump campaign, to have his own personal tech in the polling locations in key swing states seems to be a pretty crazy conflict of interest. Yuval's response to this argument was that you can't hack a voting machine using a Wi-Fi router because voting machines aren't even connected to the Wi-Fi.
Voting machines, voting tabulators, they are never connected to the internet. It would be like thinking that you burned your breakfast because somebody hacked into your toaster.
The problem with this response is I already said that in my original video.
And I understand that a modem is a piece of tech that is not literally connected to a voting machine. It just provides the internet. I get that.
I already acknowledged that I know that traditionally a Wi-Fi modem is not a piece of tech that would be able to hack into a voting machine. What I'm positing here is a theory for opportunity. We have a character assessment that is in line with a man who cheats and lies at everything he ever does. We have a really solid motive to cheat and lie. And here we have a plausible case for opportunity. Gonna use another analogy here. Imagine in an Ocean's 11 movie that Danny and the gang want to hack into the slot machines at a Las Vegas casino. They decide they're going to do this by having their tech guy bring in a card counting machine that is going to be secretly used to hack into the slot machines. And I don't know, if you were in a notorious gang of casino thieves and you wanted to sneak your slot machine hacking tech into a casino, it might be a good idea to hide it Trojan horse style inside of another machine that looks seemingly harmless but is secretly concealing tech that is more nefarious. And again, I'm not saying that this is definitely how it was done. I'm just saying that narratively, it's really crazy and stupid that Elon Musk was allowed to have his personal tech so close to voting machines in polling locations in key swing states. It's almost as crazy and stupid as if you told me the 2020 votes were tabulated on Hunter Biden's laptop. And again, I'm not a tech whiz. I don't know how this could be accomplished, but lots of people who work in tech have posited plausible theories on how it could be accomplished. Also, Elon Musk just said it. He just said, I could totally hack a voting machine. That's just a thing that he said. Anyway, I feel like the gist of Yuval's video is just, well, look at the official numbers and data. If you look at the official numbers and data, it's clear he won fair and square. And the reason why I think that's a pretty weak response and pretty unhelpful response is because the whole point is, can we trust the official numbers and data? And if you're willing to ask that question and look into all of the reasons why it is reasonable not to trust the official numbers and data, then all of that evidence means nothing. But at the end of the day, in my original video, I was more or less just saying I want us to be able to at least have the conversation. And with Yuval responding to me like this, it gives us an opportunity to have the conversation. So I hope this remains productive. I hope it can remain respectful. And I look forward to hearing what, if anything, he has to say in response. So, once again, I don't believe that I'm making any extraordinary claims. I don't actually think I'm making any real claims at all. The only thing I've ever been doing in any of these videos is trying to advocate for the idea that it's not crazy or unreasonable or fringe or tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist behavior to simply question the official data coming out of the 2024 presidential election. This is the fourth video I've made so far on the topic, and the responses have been overwhelmingly positive, but a lot of the people who are detractors in my comments will say things like, you're not offering any evidence, you're just sort of vibe posting, and you're not offering any hard, irrefutable evidence that definitively proves that fraud took place in the 2024 election. You're just sort of making a case for how it hypothetically could have or may have. I never claimed that I was going to present hard evidence of any definitive claims. In none of the videos that I've made, you can go back and check, in none of these videos did I start with a thesis where I said, I know for a fact that widespread fraud took place in the 2024 presidential election, and in these videos, I am going to lay out my hard, irrefutable evidence that definitively proves that thesis. All I was ever doing from the beginning is trying to mainstream the idea that it should be okay for us to have a serious conversation about the data coming out of that election. It should be okay for us to open up the idea of having some kind of widespread, mainstream, serious, legitimate investigation into that data. People who believe the official data is 100% reliable and does not need to be questioned have this kind of patronizing way of dismissing people with legitimate concerns, and it's been taking place like since November. Like the day after the election, I was asking questions and I had friends tell me, don't do that, don't be like that. In the American justice system, if you want to successfully launch an appeal on a case that has been closed, if you want to reopen a trial that has already been settled, you don't need to come to the judge and say, we've been able to definitively prove that this person who was found guilty is actually innocent, and here's all of our evidence. All you need to be able to do is conclusively show that new information legitimately calls into question the potential reliability of the official forensic evidence that was used in the original trial. And that is all I'm doing here. That is all I've ever claimed to be doing. I have never claimed that I am here to prove the case, to slam dunk it and make it airtight. So everyone that jumps into my comments and says, you're not doing a good enough job proving this, trials in the justice system take years. If I actually wanted to make the definitive case that definitively proves that widespread fraud did happen, it would take me months to years of my life to do that. All I've ever been doing from the beginning is just positing the very simple idea, the very basic idea that it should be okay for us to question the official narrative. That's it. Okay, so I just want to say Yuval made another response video to the video you just watched, and I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to make another response to his response, but I don't really want to get in a prolonged back and forth content war with Yuval. Like, we have a lot of crossover between our audiences, and I really don't want our audiences feeling like they need to choose sides between the two of us. I really do respect Yuval. I really mean that. And I really value his voice and think that he's a really intelligent guy. And so I don't like, the point of this is not to make some kind of war between the two of us. I do think I'm going to be doing an episode of People Pleaser on this, because there is more that I want to say, and there's more that I want to elucidate when it comes to the reality of my position, and just more I want to clarify.
And I just don't think I can keep doing it in a short form context. The reason why I was making the videos shorter in the first place is because I have a hard time getting people to watch my long form videos, not because the audience is uninterested in them, but because the algorithm just kind of refuses to show them to anybody. I think it's the only way that I can actually like say everything I want to say and be done with at least this portion of the discussion. So that's what's going to be next, is a full-length episode of People Pleaser that'll drop here on YouTube soon. Next few days, maybe in a week, I don't know. Check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Austin Archer. It's only $1. Videos go early there, and there's extra bonus content and Patreon exclusive content and all kinds of extra added things that you get for $1. $1 a month. $10 buys you a whole year. Shout out to the Patreon patrons. Okay, that's the end of this one. We'll see you at the next one.